In this episode, we watch some fireworks and meet some salty flamingos.
But we don't eat them.
That's a good point. My wife and I are on a motorcycle trip through Mexico, Central, and South America exploring culture and food. So bring an appetite for adventure because we're hungry riders. So we're in Enrique, Chile, and it is New Year's Eve, and that means it's time for some fireworks.
And our hotel was actually just a couple blocks away from the waterfront where we were told that there was going to be a big show, so we just walked down there with Doron again.
And yeah, there was a big crowd of people going. The street was closed off, which was nice. People were doing some little mini fireworks there, throwing their sparklers onto the street.
Yeah, and then the street lights turned off, which is obviously the sign that the show is about to begin. And fireworks started going off, one after the other, one on top of the other.
Yeah, and right at New Year's, you're supposed to have some kind of traditional things where they have like grapes or champagne, which is normal here, but it's specifically to bring luck for the new year. And people were kind enough to share that with us while we were there as visitors.
Yeah, and then to top it all off, the big finale was a fiery waterfall. It was a really spectacular sight.
So after a brief stop, it's time to move on, and we're headed towards Kalama, which is kind of a desert town. It's south of Arica.
And the roads that we were on were kind of like these sand dune, there's some rocks and mountains still, but it's like
super dry, windswept.
No vegetation whatsoever.
Yep.
And it actually is where they do the Dakar races. We were a little bit ahead of the Dakar.
And riding on paved roads that were very good quality.
Right, we weren't actually going on the dunes. But yeah, it was quite a different landscape than what we'd seen up to this point.
And this is another one of those kind of routes where people go through if you're going south on a motorcycle, and we added our sticker once again to the crowd.
And one of the roads that we were on had a little detour onto a dirt section, and it was super windy, and so the trucks, the semis that were coming the opposite direction from us were kicking up these giant dirt clouds that we had to ride through, so that was kind of exciting.
Zero visibility for like a couple seconds.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of gas when you're riding through these somewhat remote, open, out in the middle of nowhere, desert type towns. You need to get gas frequently.
Pretty much as often as you see it.
We're riding with Doron, who's got a big, GS 1200 bike. It's got more gas than we do, and it can cruise better at like higher speeds. And this is, freeway speeds all along here.
Right.
There's almost no other traffic at all. And so it's non-ideal conditions for a KLR.
Well, plus we were going uphill most of the time, plus into the wind. So all these factors were working against us.
And then I have the extra luggage on mine, side panniers, and I think those aren't quite as aerodynamic, and I have a bit more weight than Serafina.
Compared to me.
So yeah, your gas mileage was much better than mine in these conditions still. We're getting very close to Kalama. We know it's not that much further, and we're riding up a hill, but it's been like 20 or 30 miles of just like straight, steady uphill climbing.
Only about 150 miles from the last gas station.
Yeah, and then I hit reserve, which is not good.
Which we normally hit reserve at about 200 miles.
Yeah, and then like another 10 or 12 miles later, I completely run out.
Can't go any further.
So we just pull over, and now we need to get some gas in my tank.
But we brought the tools just for this very occasion.
So we have a tube that we can siphon gas from.
And 2 other bikes.
Yep, and a container to put it in.
Right.
And so we try and do that. And my job was to suck the gas out of the tube.
It was your bike that ran out of fuel.
And I did run out of fuel, so I'm willing to do that. And then but they were trying to have the tube inside the tank itself, but there's like these little barriers from the very bottom of the tank that you have to kind of get the tube around, and we couldn't quite reach the gas in there because there probably wasn't a whole lot left in your tank.
Right.
And the same for Doron's as well.
Yeah, we tried both my bike and Doron's bike. We couldn't get the gas out of either one.
I was just getting straight fumes, which is not good for your lungs.
So we flagged a car down, explained the situation.
They're like, oh sure, yeah, have some of our gas, and we still couldn't reach that because of our tube set up.
The tube was flimsy, and it was hard. The way the car fuel tanks are designed, they don't let you do that, which makes sense. But
so then we flagged the motorcycle down. You can always count on the kindness of other motorcycles. And this guy had a Versus, and we told him the situation. Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, take a couple liters, no problem. He told us we're really close to a gas station still.
He actually lives in the town that we were trying to get to that evening, which was not very far.
So that worked, no problem in that case. We filled it up. I tried to give him some money for the gas, and gas is really expensive in Chile. I took, in 2 liters, that's like $7 or $8 worth.
Yeah, but he wouldn't accept the money. We gave him our business card instead. So hopefully he's watching. Hello, thank you for giving us gas again.
Mm-hmm. And so we're up up and running, back on the road again, and we made it over the crest of that hill, and just to be safe, I did coast down the other side. And but yeah, the gas station was super close, and everyone topped up once we were there.
So then we rode into Kalama right at sunset. It was a very gorgeous sunset, and the next task, of course, is to find a hotel.
And we went to 4 or 5 different places, and you know, we're willing to pay more. Chile is more expensive, but none of them had parking whatsoever. Like, it was
Yeah.
going to be street parking, and
Which is not
that's
ideal.
one of our rules against this parking on this whole trip.
So we decided to camp. We found a campground, and this was our first time camping in South America. We had camped once before in Guatemala, but
And it was great. You know, there was Wi-Fi right there at the campsite.
outlets so we could charge our stuff.
Yeah, we ran a power cord directly to our tent and charged all our stuff overnight.
Picnic tables and
Yep, there was-
showers. And
No problem. We can definitely do more of this.
And we were actually
And we will.
we were the only people camping there. There were some cabins around, but we were the only tent, so that was nice.
So the next morning, we're heading off for San Pedro de Atacama. And this is only an hour away, so nice and close, and there's some cool salt flats that are going to be near there.
Yeah, and so this town, it's kind of a tourist destination. People come from all over the world to this place. They do sandboarding, they do hiking and bicycle tours.
It's right next to Bolivia, so people do like the 4-wheel drive expeditions from there as well.
There's ancient ruins around there. There's all kinds of stuff. And so this town is a very interesting mix of tourist, but still trying to keep its
Rugged frontier.
right. So
side.
even though that all the roads leading up to the town,
Super nicely paved, like you think you're in Europe or something like that.
right, but the town itself keeps its dirt roads, especially downtown. So we headed out to see the salt flats, and it was about an hour away, and then you take a dirt turnoff to head actually out to the spot, the visitor center spot, and we could start to see some other motorcyclists head in the opposite direction. So
Again, it's one of those things to see in the area.
It's one of those destinations, and then you start seeing the salt actually build up on the side of the road
Until it's big, white crusty
until
salt.
that's all there is.
Yeah, that's all you can see. And there's little pools out there, which is kind of what this visitor center is centered around.
Right, and we put our sticker on their visitor center as well.
I had a chance to walk around. I think you had to pay a little fee
Yeah,
for the
it's
tour, but yeah,
a
it
spot.
was nominal. And yeah, we walked along there, and we got to see the flamingos.
And these flamingos are really interesting because they're a lot more whitish than most flamingos that we're used to, and it's because of the brine shrimp that they eat that affects their coloring. It's a Chilean, and there are 2 types, Chilean flamingos and Andean flamingos.
So then we headed back to San Pedro de Atacama, and we parted ways with Doron because he wanted to go down along the coast, and we want to go to Argentina. We were thinking about potentially staying there,
Yeah.
and
So we asked again around 4 or 5 different hotels, trying
Yeah.
to find a place to stay. But again, it was so expensive because this is a touristy town.
no parking. They showed us a room, and it was $40 a night, which isn't too crazy,
Right.
but it was like a prison cell
The size
for
of a
$40 a
closet.
night.
So we looked for camping, as you do, and the one campground that we found said, sorry, we're closed
There's
tonight.
just no camping now. Sorry, Chile, you're too expensive. We're going to Argentina.
It's only about 100 miles away, so we figured we could make it. And we also thought that there might be some hotels in some little small towns on
So
the way.
we'll stop at the next town that isn't this like super touristy one.
Yeah, so we headed out and there was nothing.
And you're technically supposed to check out of Chile at the border of this town, but
We didn't know that. There's nothing that tells you that.
But yeah, so we passed that.
We saw our first guanacos, which are kind of deer/llama type animals that are only in Patagonia.
Yeah,
So
very-
that was really cool.
Very strange looking.
Mhm.
And yeah, we kept going, and then, you know, I was starting to get worried because like there's no towns that are coming up. We're getting close to the border, but so we pulled over a motorcyclist and asked him about it. He said, "Yeah, there's a gas station and a hotel right at the border." So, oh, that's great.
We can make that.
That's what we need.
That's fine.
So yeah, we went for it, and this was like the quickest border crossing of the whole trip.
Yeah, there was nobody else there, so there's no lines. It took a little bit for the workers to come up to our window that we were waiting at, but that's not a big deal.
Yeah, it was super quick, and we were on our way in, I don't know, 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, because again, we only had to check into Argentina. We missed the checking out of Chile
We
part.
skipped the country
Yeah.
without checking out.
So that halved the time right there.
We should do that more often.
So then we headed to that gas station that we heard about and checked out the hotel there, but it was still a little bit too expensive.
Yeah, $65 a night, partly because of the exchange rates.
Right, and so again, the exchange rate, we were getting gas and we could pay for that with a credit card, but there were no ATMs or anything that we could pay for our dinner with.
So we had to change money just with some other gas purchase customers
Who were going into Chile, so we both needed the other's money, so that worked out pretty well.
We had to figure out the exchange rate between, because we knew it in dollars for Chilean pesos and Argentinian pesos, so we had to do that conversion. And
There was a little bit of math there.
But it worked out to be pretty fair.
Yeah, and so then we went to the restaurant next door while we tried to figure out where we were going to sleep. And we had a very nice meal there, including our first taste of some boxed wine. And boxed wine has a bit of a stigma here in the US, but it was actually very good. It was cheap and tasty.
And we're probably going to have more of it down the road.
Yes. And then while we were at that restaurant, we asked them, hey, do you mind if we camp in your backyard?
And yeah, sure, no problem.
And they didn't even charge us for it.
Yep, so we just camped, no Wi-Fi or hot showers this time. But yeah, it worked out, and this is probably one of the colder camping things that we had on the trip as well.
Yeah, it was high altitude,
Super
it was
high
really
altitude.
cold, but yeah, it worked out fine. Second night in a row camping, and many more to come.
That's it for this episode. Next time we will get a taste of Argentinian life with some llama and some wine tasting.
But until then, please subscribe to our channel to be up to date on all these videos. YouTube.com/HungryWriters.
And our whole trip at hungryriders.com.
We'll see you next time.